I can hear you all there in the background, so hope you're all having a wonderful time at the event. Thank you to Anthony for inviting me, and hopefully I will be able to share a whole range of information with you on a number of different topics. Hopefully you guys have all got some pens and paper there so you can scribble down some notes. What I have said to Anthony is I'm going to run through a PowerPoint presentation, and at the conclusion of that, I will send a copy of that through to Anthony, and hopefully somehow or another he'll find a way to put that up on a website or provide a link to that PowerPoint presentation. So if you missed some of the court cases that were referred to, or some of the sections or subsections of law or anything like that, don't worry, we will make a copy of the presentation available to everyone. So I'm just going to get straight into it. I'm just going to click this and hopefully click that. And is that all showing up on the screen there? Hopefully, everybody? Yes. Can see that? I'm sure someone will let me know if it's not. And look, I'm just going to get straight into it. Alright, so as it says at the top here, those who don't know their rights have none. And this is so important, it's such an important concept, because most people sort of have this general idea or concept that they have some rights, but they don't really know what they are, and therefore it makes it very difficult for them to exercise them in any way, shape or form. So just very quickly, my story, as Anthony said, I'm a success coach. I inspire and empower people to be the best that they can be. That's what I do day in, day out. That's my background. I teamed up with the Aussie speeding fines guys about 12 years ago now. Again, as Anthony alluded to, I have been fortunate enough to have some fancy toys over the years. And back in the day, I just kept getting pulled over and receiving these ridiculous speeding fines for 5 and 6 kilometres over the postal limit. And it's just like, well, the thickness of the speedometer on the cars that I was driving was enough to make a difference between getting a fine and it just got out of control. So I just sort of started looking into the laws and doing a bit of research. And lo and behold, as I did that, I found the truth. And it's just not, surprisingly, not what we have been taught at school and uni and by other people throughout our lives. It's just, it's all been smoke and mirrors and bluff. And once you learn how to wade through all the fluff and get to the gist of it, you'll be amazed at what you actually find out. So after a number of years of doing that, both in relation to fines, also in relation to the bank fraud, and a number of other issues, I ended up teaming up with Darryl O'Brien, and we started the Know Your Rights group some 6.5 years ago. We've been running weekly radio shows every Tuesday night. For most of that time, we've been running around the country before this COVID business, running live events, doing seminars, workshops, things like that for people, and basically just doing whatever we can to help spread the word, get the message out there to people, and teach them the truth about what's really going on in the world, and of course about their rights and how to exercise them. So one of the first things that I learned about, and one of the first things that people tend to always ask me about, is of course fines. These are just rampant in this day and age, and that can be anything from speeding fines to parking fines to other traffic fines. Obviously, we've seen recently over the past 6 months, depending on what state you're from, a whole range of different COVID-related fines. Not wearing a mask, travelling, trying to cross the borders, travelling more than 5 k's from your home, if you're in Victoria. A wide range of really crazy and truly pointless fines. So one of the first things that I like to bring to people's attention is subsection 12 of the Material Acts Application Act, which clearly dictates, as it says there, that all grants and promises of fines and forfeitures of particular persons before conviction are illegal and void. Okay? Fines and forfeitures before conviction are illegal and void. So that means if you've received a fine before going to court and actually being convicted, then that fine is illegal and void. So if you get a piece of paper with a fancy logo in your mailbox from the traffic camera office or something like that, saying you supposedly exceeded the posted speed limit, that fine or that infringement notice or that expiation notice, depending on what state you're from, is actually illegal and void. Okay, if the police pull you over and say, oh, look, you're not wearing a mask or you're not social distancing, and they hand you again a piece of paper with a fancy logo on the top with some kind of fancy name on top of it, again, that fine has not been declared, it's illegal and void. The same now with these new hoon laws, where they try and take the car off you if you've been allegedly caught speeding more than 25 or 30 k's over the limit, again depending on what state you're in. But again, at that moment, if you've been pulled over on the side of the road and they're making a claim or an allegation against you, you have not actually been to court. So again, that forfeiture of your vehicle is illegal and void. So these are some really basic points for people to start to get their head around. Now, again, as Anthony said before, nothing that I'm sharing with you today is to be in any way, shape or form considered legal advice. What I urge you all to do, because I will give you the exact sections, subsections of legislation, I'll tell you about pages of certain books that you can refer to, I'll refer you to specific court cases, and I urge you all, if there's something that I cover today that's of interest to you, that grab your attention, I urge you all to go away and research that point for yourself. Okay, go away and read it and research it, and then once you get your head around it and you've done that research, then that information becomes really powerful because it then becomes your information. Right now, everything that I'm going to cover in this presentation is really my info, okay, even though you can find it in other places. But once you go and read it and learn it for yourself, then it becomes your information, and that's when it becomes truly powerful. Alright, as it says down at the bottom there, fines are a $2 billion a year business. $2 billion, okay, and that's all this is to the government. It is just a big business. Now, the other problem with fines is, as the heading says, they simply don't work. Okay? Despite how much the governments rake in, especially from traffic fines each and every year, the road toll actually continues to increase in most states. And again, whatever state you're in, just go to your RTA, Vic Roads, Queensland Transport, whatever your equivalent is, and go to their website and they will give you the statistics for each year of the road toll. And go and have a look at the last 5 years. Now you'll find that in most states, it has grown each and every year despite more and more fines being handed out. Or if nothing else, it'll yo-yo and go up and down the road the shop. Now again, if fines truly work, there should be a gradual and consistent reduction in the road toll, which clearly isn't happening. So, as it says there, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again, but expecting a different result. So what do these state governments, police do? They put out more mobile cameras, they install more fixed cameras, they do more of the same thing, but expect a different result. And that is quite clearly insane. Okay, so as it says there, it's time for people to stop blindly paying their fines and for people to start challenging them. Now, just because I go through this information and I show you why they're illegal and void, does not mean, okay, that you can just ignore them or just put them in the bottom drawer and just forget about them and hope that they go away. That's not going to achieve anything other than getting you in more trouble. What you need to do is you need to actually start challenging them. So, how do we actually challenge these fines? Right. First and foremost, learn the laws in your state. Now, I'm going to give you an example here. for a second, and hopefully that comes through. So this is the Road Rules Victoria publication. And again, you're going to find an equivalent in whatever state you're in. And I'm just turning the cover onto the very first page. Okay, and I'm just going to read out that highlighted line right at the top of the page there. And it says, the following document, entitled Road Rules Victoria, is published by the Roads Corporation, Vic Roads, to enable the contents to be adopted as law in Victoria. Now, what a complete load of fluff. To enable the contents to be adopted as law in Victoria. Why wouldn't they just say, this is now law in Victoria? Because they know it's not. Okay? To enable the contents means that the contents must currently be disabled, not able, whatever. Okay? To be adopted as law in Victoria means that they are not currently law, otherwise they wouldn't need to be adopted as law. Okay, so this is the perfect example. You can all go and do this yourself. Go home, get the Road Rules publication in your state, open it to the first page, and just see what it says. They all say something very, very similar. So it's so important to learn about the actual laws in your state, in your area, in your country, what's in the country. All right, I'm going to go back to the share screen. There we go. Alright, ask for proof of claim. Alright, when you get a ticket in the mail with the fancy logo on the top, or the police officer hands you the little piece of paper on the side of the road, it's just a claim. They're claiming that you exceeded the speed limit. They're claiming that you didn't stop at a red light. They're claiming that you were talking on a mobile phone while you were driving. It's just a claim, okay? It's not a fact. There's no evidence at that point. It's just a claim. So that's fine. Then ask for proof of claim. All right? You want to ask for proof of claim. All right? Take the fine to court. Okay? If they can't provide proof of their claim, then take the fine to court and fill up the court system. Now, this is something that I've talked about on some of my Know Your Rights live video updates over the past couple of months. Because there's just been so many fines being handed out over this whole COVID pandemic period over the last 6 months, and because people have just, for whatever reason, they've either woken up to the truth and said, no, this is rubbish, I'm not paying it, whether they're, again, I'm not sure what it was in each state, but certainly in Victoria, any of the COVID-related fines were like $150. Now, most people just simply can't afford to pay those fines, so they had no choice but to challenge them. So for whatever reason, there's been so many people challenging their fines that any fines that have been received at any time since about June are not being heard until almost a year later. Okay, and that's just with some people challenging their fines. If just 5% of people challenged every fine that they received, we would bring the whole court system to a grinding halt in an absolute heartbeat. It would take about a week. Okay, the courts are completely overwhelmed. They can't handle all the requests for review. They can't list all of the cases. Okay, so don't be afraid to just turn over the back of the fine, okay, and send it back in and just say, hey, I want this heard in court, and see whether they still want to pursue it that far or not. Okay, because if we fill up the court system, if everybody plays their role, we will bring an end to this madness very, very quickly. Okay, and another key point is ask for costs. Okay, so many people, especially newbies, the first time they go to court and they run these arguments and they go, yep, case dismissed, and they're so excited that they won their case, they rush out of the courtroom and they forget to ask for costs. Okay, now this is such an important point for people to keep in mind. You've got to ask for costs. I had an instance going back probably about 3 years ago now in the Dandenong Magistrate Court in Melbourne, and I had a $1.27 tollway fine, and this thing had gone on for about 12, 18 months and escalated into an enforcement order and all the rest of it. and then I applied for an application for annulment or revocation to have it withdrawn, and they refused that. So then I went into court, and hand up this, big affidavit, these big, outlines of submissions, and the magistrate's taken one look at it and gone, whoa, Mr. Palmer's raising some serious constitutional arguments here, like, this is over $1.27 call fine, I don't think we want to do that, do we? And the prosecutor's like, oh, no, that's fine. And so they go, oh, we'll withdraw that. And I said, oh, but no, Your Honour, they can't actually withdraw it because they haven't paid my cost. Oh, that's a separate matter, Mr. Palmer, we can deal with that later, okay? So anyway, they went off and said, oh, we've withdrawn the case now. I said, no, you're only applying to withdraw the case, and I will reject or defend that application because you haven't paid costs. And they're like, oh, no, costs don't get paid in matters like this. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. So anyway, whatever the return date was, I turned up to court, they go, oh, Mr. Palmer, you don't need to be here, this has been withdrawn. And I said, no, it's an application to be withdrawn. And they go, oh, that's all the same thing. I said, no, it's not. Anyway, so I walk into court and they go, oh, but Mr. Palmer, why are you here? And I explain it all again. Oh, you should go and speak to the prosecutor because you don't get costs in these things. And I went, okay, well, we'll see. So I went up to the prosecution's office and old mate was there. He was 6 foot tall and 4 foot across and, oh, no, I'll deal with this personally. That's ridiculous. You can't get costs and all the rest of it. So anyway, so we went back in. Eventually the case got called and the magistrate was like, oh, but Mr. Palmer, this has been withdrawn. I said, no, it's an application to be withdrawn. And she's like, oh, but you're going to object to that application? I said, well, yes. She goes, on what grounds? I said, well, they haven't paid my costs. I've been telling them for 18 months if they pursue this, I've got costs and they have to pay my costs. And she's going, oh, well, this is not the usual way that it works, but Mr. Prosecutor, you've got something to say. Oh, yes, this is absurd, and Mr. Palmer can't get costs in this, it's been withdrawn. And I said, but hang on, I've actually got an affidavit of costs, I've put up all my evidence, all my material. And the magistrate went, well, but Mr. Palmer's actually incurred some costs, and he did give you guys every opportunity to withdraw this, but you refused for 18 months, and you kept forcing him to write letters and turn up to court previously, and I think he's actually due something. Anyway, long story short, we went back and forth for about half an hour. The magistrate ended up awarding me $150 in costs over $1.27 tollway fine. So, if there's any of you out there, I can't see the audience, but if there's any of you out there that run your own businesses, I'm sure you'll agree that if you have to spend $150 to get a $1.27 sale that ultimately got refunded, you wouldn't be in business very long. Okay, and this is exactly what we need to do to the police, to the local councils, to the governments, all this kind of thing. We need to defend these cases, and then when we're successful, we need to hit them up for costs. Because they will very quickly learn that people aren't just going to roll over and blindly pay these things anymore, and they're actually the ones who are going to have to pay people for defending these cases successfully, and then they'll start to revisit their business model, hopefully very quickly. Alright, so one of the primary principles whenever it comes to any traffic fines, and that is this, that driving is a right, not a privilege. Now the police and the courts will generally try and tell you that, oh no, your driver's licence, that's a privilege, and we can take that away from you if you're a naughty boy or girl and do the wrong thing. Well, no, that's actually not the case. So this case, which is Thompson v. Smith, clearly says that the right of the citizen to travel upon the public highways and transport his property thereon, either by carriage or by automobile, is not a mere privilege which a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common right which he has under the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, so this is not a privilege that a city or a state can prohibit or permit at will. So this is very important to remember when you're dealing with any traffic-related cases. Okay, Section 5 of the Statute of Monopolies, which comes in through the Imperial Acts, states that all monopolies and all commissions, grants, licences, charters and letters patents heretofore made or granted are altogether contrary to the laws of this realm. They are contrary to the laws of this realm. Okay, so licenses are unlawful. Okay, so again, this is stuff, this is really sort of basic, low-level, entry-level stuff that most people have never even heard of before. All right, now people might go, oh, but Mike, those are US cases. We're here in Australia, how do we use that? Well, as it says there, US cases can be used in our courts and are used in our courts all the time. Now, the quick and current annotated constitution, which I'll get to a little later in the presentation, is considered by the courts as the authority of the Constitution, and it refers to numerous US court cases. It also cites the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the United States Constitution. Therefore, as it says, it's a well-known fact within the legal system in Australia that US court cases can be decided in our courts without any issue at all. And again, the way you do it is you would raise the argument or you would cite the particular case, and then the burden of proof is upon the prosecution to prove that that does not apply in Australia. So, for example, when we're talking about the right to travel, then you've got court cases there that clearly state it is a God-given right to travel freely about the country. So you would simply raise that case in an Australian court and say, Your Honour, does the prosecution have some evidence to suggest or to show that the God-given right to travel exists in the United States, but somehow that same God-given right to travel does not exist in Australia? Okay, and again, you can use this in respect of any law from any country if it suits your purpose to do so. So please be aware of that. Alright, so some different arguments that you can use in relation to various fines, especially in relation to traffic fines. First and foremost, can you prove to this court that another vehicle could not have triggered the camera? Okay, now anybody who knows anything about photography will know about things like the width and aperture of lenses, and anyone who's done any training with laser or radar at all will also know things about like beam width, and so there can be something outside of the field of view of the camera, but still within the beam width of the speed detection device that could trigger the camera. So another vehicle could possibly have triggered the camera, but that camera happened to take a photo of your vehicle. And it would be upon the prosecution to prove that that could not have happened. Now, how do they prove that something could not have happened? It's very, very difficult. So it's important to know not only the arguments to use, but also how to present them. Okay, here's another great one, especially in recent times. If they claim that your vehicle is unregistered, ask them how they know. Now, I believe it's in every state in Australia now that they have removed those little registration stickers from the windscreen of cars. And lo and behold, ever since they've done that, the number of unregistered vehicle fines has gone through the roof. Because, of course, how do most people know when their rego's due? They haven't looked on their sticker. Now they're not issuing the stickers anymore, so most people haven't got it through. Okay? Now, of course, these various agencies, Queensland Transport, Vic Roads, and all the rest of it, RMS in New South Wales, will also, but we'll send you out the reminder notice, but how often do things go missing in the mail? Okay? And people don't find out until they get pulled over by a police officer. Now, here's the thing. If you get pulled over by a police officer, for example, and they go, oh, look, we're pulling you over because your vehicle's unregistered. Oh, really, officer? And how did you come to ascertain that? Oh, well, we've got a number plate recognition system on our vehicle, and that reads your number plate. Oh, wow, that's pretty fascinating. That sounds like pretty high-tech stuff. Yes. Oh, so how does it work? So it read my number plate, and then what did it do? Oh, our vehicle has a computer connected to it. And we've got internet access, and so that photo goes into our computer, and that photo connects to the Queensland Transport database, the RMS database, whatever it is, and it flags that your vehicle was unregistered. Oh wow! So it takes a photo of the license plate, it feeds it in the computer, and then it connects it to another database. Yeah, that's how it works. Okay. So it found my vehicle, my license plate, on that Queensland Transport database, on that RMS database. Yes. Okay, so you just confirmed that my vehicle's registered to that database, so what's the problem? You see, your vehicle is never unregistered. The term is incorrect. Okay, even if you write your car off in an accident, it is still registered as a write-off. Okay, so the whole charge of unregistered vehicle is completely incorrect. Right? And this is something that we will speak about a lot in our live events. The devil is in the detail. The meaning of one word as opposed to another can make all the difference. The difference between person and man or woman, vehicle and automobile, registered. These all have specific legal meanings, and it's very, very important to get your head around those specifics. Because what you were taught certain words mean back in high school, may not actually be the truth when it comes to operating in the real world. As I said there, demand proof of every claim they make. Without it, there's no case to answer. Okay? Where's the proof that the vehicle's unregistered? You've just established that it was registered to a database. If they say, we've got photos of you going through a red light. Oh, really? Can you show me one photo where my vehicle is behind the white line when the light's red, and then there's another photo showing me continuing through the intersection? I don't know, there's just two photos of you in the intersection when the light's red. Okay, great. So isn't the charge that I entered on red? Where is your proof that I entered the intersection on red? How do you know I wasn't already in the intersection? I had to stop for some reason. Some guy pulled out in front of the car in front, slammed on his brakes, whatever, and then I continued through the intersection after I had already entered on green or amber. Okay? So ask for proof of every claim they make. So important. Okay? Challenge the magistrate to charge you with perjury, okay, after giving your sworn testimony. Now, this is really, really powerful. So, here is the statement to make in court. And again, this applies to anything that you might be in court for. Okay? And defence to anything. As it says, Your Honour, I've just provided evidence by way of sworn testimony that I'm not guilty of the offence of which I'm being charged. Whether it's speeding, parking, red light, not wearing a mask, whatever it is. If you believe my evidence, then you're required to dismiss the charge on the grounds that I have established reasonable doubt. If you don't believe my evidence, then you have a judicial requirement to have me charged with perjury. What are you going to do? And then zip it. Don't say another word. You've just backed them into a corner. Okay, you've just explained that you didn't do what they're claiming you did. And you're saying, listen, if you believe what I've just said, then you have to dismiss the charge because I've established reasonable doubt. This is my word against their word. There is some doubt. Okay, if you believe me, then there's some doubt. Now, if you don't believe my evidence, if you think I'm making it all up, then you have a judicial requirement to have me charged with perjury. Now, unless you've got on the stand and blatantly lied, obviously we don't recommend you do that, but unless you've done that, how are they going to charge you with perjury? They've got no evidence to do so. Okay, so these are very, very powerful strategies that you can use once you get your head around them. Alright, another one, this is for some of the more advanced people out there, challenging the jurisdiction of the court. If you raise some of these various arguments, okay, and the court doesn't seem to be buying into them, said, oh no, we're not going to accept that, oh no, we don't believe that, oh that's not relevant, or whatever, then you can go into challenging the jurisdiction of the court. Again, here's some really great cases that you can rely on. Thompson v. Tommy, where there is an absence of jurisdiction, all administrative and judicial proceedings are a nullity and confer no right, offer no protection, and afford no justifications, and may be rejected upon direct collateral attack. Okay? The proceedings are a nullity until if there's an absence of jurisdiction, until they've established jurisdiction, the proceeding is a nullity. Okay? It means nothing. Okay, in 2001, Chief Justice Murray Gleeson, right here in Australia, said, no citizen can be judged by anything other than a court that complies with Section 71 of the Commonwealth Constitution. Okay, and we'll get to that shortly in this presentation. So, what are Chapter 3 courts? Cable versus New South Wales DPP. Again, it's known as the Cable Principle. This is a fundamental legal case. Okay, it's crucial to the fact that all courts must comply with Chapter 3 of the Commonwealth Constitution. Okay, Argyck versus Lemur again confirms that all courts must comply with Section 71 of the Commonwealth Constitution. Forge v. Assey. All courts must revert back to the way they were at Federation. How did courts operate at Federation? With 2 justices. Not 1 magistrate, 2 justices. Why? Because if we go back to the Bible, as in the very book that they would ask you to swear an oath on, if you were giving, if you were going to give some sort of testimony, even our Bible tells us 1 man cannot sit in judgment of another. So all courts are supposed to have a minimum of 2 judges, 2 magistrates. Okay, so there's so many arguments that you can use in any case once you start to get your head around these important principles. Alright, so what are some other cases that you can use? Okay, there's a whole bunch of more advanced tort cases that can also be used when challenging fines. Breeding v. Congress, which is known as the WA Fisheries case. That refers to any device being used for any legal purpose must comply with Section 10 of the National Measurement Act. Okay? Any device used for any legal purpose must comply. Okay? It will come, I'm sure, as no surprise to everybody watching this, that there is no speed detection device currently in use in Australia that has been tested and certified to comply with the National Measurement Act. Not a single one. Dr. Richard Britton, who is the Chief Metrologist at the National Measurement Institute, has written to a number of members and confirmed that in writing. And again, you can find copies of those letters on the Aussie Speeding Fines website if you want to learn more. Lee versus New South Wales Crime Commission. The presumption of innocence against self-incrimination. You don't have to say or do anything that would incriminate you, and they can't force you to. Liberano v. R, such an important case. The burden of proof is upon the prosecution in any criminal case. Now, when you turn up to court and they go, well, why are you pleading not guilty? You go, because I know I wasn't speeding. Oh, have you got some expert witness that can testify to that? Have you got some video footage? No, I just know for the fact I wasn't speeding. Okay? Oh, but you have to prove that you weren't speeding. No, you're the prosecution, and this being a criminal case, a quasi-criminal, which doesn't even exist, okay, the burden of proof is on you to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? So don't let them twist things around, don't let them scare you off when you're challenging these fines. So some other cases to use. Doligue versus Becker and all. The concept of onus does not always apply. Oh, you have to tell us who the driver of the vehicle was, otherwise it should be deemed that you were the driver and therefore you're guilty. No. As long as you can prove that you were somewhere else doing something else, okay, you can't be held responsible for, or you cannot be found guilty of an offence that you can prove that you didn't commit. So if someone else borrowed your car and you were at work that day, you don't have to tell them who it was. You weren't there. How do you know? Even if you think you know, it's still only hearsay. Okay, so be aware of these important distinctions. Port of Portland versus State of Victoria. All 7 justices, not 1 or 2 or 3, all 7 justices confirmed the validity of the Imperial Acts Application Act and the Bill of Rights. What do I say right from the outset of this presentation? Section 8, subsection 12 of the Imperial Acts Application Act says that all fines and forfeitures before conviction are illegal and void. Now, heaps of people, police officers, all the rest of them say, oh, that doesn't apply, that doesn't apply. Well, Port of Portland versus State of Victoria clearly states that it does. Okay? So you can't make a claim against a ruling of 7 justices. Alright, Monday versus Gill. Officers must prove every aspect of the case, including the lawfulness of the acts referred to. So important. If they refer to the Road Safety Act or the Road Traffic Management Act or any of these things, they have to prove that those acts have in fact been lawfully enacted. And as we'll get to in a minute, there are no validly lawfully enacted acts within the Commonwealth of Australia since 1973, since the introduction of Unidroit and its fictitious Queen of Australia. Okay? Now this is so powerful. This can apply to any single court case that you ever had in any field. Resch versus Federal Commissioner of Taxation. The common man's interpretation of any section of law is paramount. It's not the judge's interpretation of law, it's not the magistrate's interpretation of the law, it's not the police prosecutor's interpretation of the law, it's the common man's interpretation of the law that is paramount. And all you need to do is quote that case. So as long as you can string together a sensible argument as to how you understand that the law means that, then they can't override it, because that's what that court case says. Alright, so how does the Aussie Speedy Fines website work? There's a ton of free information and statistics up there. There's an ebook available online. There's also some resource letters that are available to all members, okay, and they come on a CD. If I'm not sure if this works without the stop share, but that's so that's the book. Hopefully you can see that. Anthony will have some copies there, the Aussie Speedy Fines book. It comes with a CD that again hopefully you can see there, and that has all of those resource letters. There's 25 pre-written letters. If you've got a speeding fine, parking fine, red light camera fine, all you need to do is just cut and paste your details in, okay, and send it off, and it's a tried, tested, proven, three-step process for successfully challenging all manner of unjust and unlawful fines. Whether it's traffic fines, even if you've got toll fines, COVID-related fines, they've got a general letter that you can just adapt and cut and paste the suit. So let's go back to here again. So Anthony's got a couple of those books there, hopefully at the back of the room, and otherwise you can jump onto the website and find out more about that. There's also full backup and support, so you're not just buying a book and CD, you're actually getting a membership, and that gives you access to the Aussie Speedy Fines guys for email support if you've got any questions during the process and all that sort of stuff. There's also an affiliate program that you can utilise, you can join up, and you can earn a commission from everyone that you refer to their website as well. So there's some other benefits of that. So there's the offer for today. That book usually sells online with postage for $102. I think Anthony's got 5 or 6 copies up the back there for $80. That includes that resources CD. So please go and see him over the course of the weekend, and he can organise a copy if anybody wants that. For those who may not get there in time or want to order one online for whatever reason, you can see the website there, aussiespeedyfines.com. There's no AU on the end, and again you can read all the statistics, read all the information. They've got something like 7 pages of testimonials that are updated every month or so you can see how people are implementing and using the information to successfully challenge all manner of fines. Alright, so moving right along, we're now going to look very quickly at the Commonwealth Constitution, because this is not some dusty old book that sits up the top of the shelf in a law library somewhere. This is still the absolute highest law in this land, and again, most people have no clue, as it says. All laws, Commonwealth laws and state laws are subject to the Commonwealth Constitution. Okay, and the Commonwealth Constitution can only be changed by referendum pursuant to Section 128. Okay, so they can't just go, oh, well look, that's not convenient anymore, so we're just going to change the Constitution. No, it doesn't work that way. They have to hold a referendum to even change one full stop, dot an I across a T, anything. Alright, so let's have a look at the start, the preamble. Whereas the people, okay, not the Parliament, not a group of politicians, the people of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland and Tasmania, humbly relying on the blessing of Almighty God, have agreed to unite in one indissoluble federal commonwealth, Okay, so these suggestions that Queensland's going to split into two, that WA is going to try and secede from the rest of Australia, no, it can't happen because they've all agreed to unite in one indissoluble federal commonwealth. And here's the other key bit. Under the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Okay? The crown cannot be some fictitious Queen of Australia who has existed since 1973. Okay? This is such an important distinction. When they talk about the Queen or the crown, we need to ask them, which Queen, which crown are you talking about? The crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, or this fictitious Queen of Australia? Such an important distinction. Alright, covering clause 5. This Act, okay, being the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, and all laws made by the Parliament of the Commonwealth under the Constitution shall be binding on the courts, judges and people of every state and every part of the Commonwealth, notwithstanding anything in the laws of any state. So this is how you bring the Commonwealth and Constitution into any argument in a courtroom. If any magistrate or judge says, oh no, the Commonwealth Constitution doesn't apply here, you simply say, oh sorry Your Honour, I must have missed it, can you please provide me with a copy of your exemption from covering clause 5 of the Commonwealth Constitution, which of course they can't do. Alright, so powers of Parliament. What powers does Parliament actually have? Well, they come through pursuant to section 51. And as it says, the Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, not just because they think it's a good idea at the time, subject to this Constitution, have power to make laws for the peace, order and good government of the Commonwealth. Now, do you honestly think that closing borders and closing businesses, all because a few people got the sniffles, classifies as good government? No, of course not. And this is why there should be class actions occurring everywhere in every state against this insanity. Okay, let's have a look. Subsection 2, taxation. But so as not to discriminate between states or parts of states. Okay? But the parts of states is the people. We the people make up the states. So they can't discriminate between people. And that means, for example, that income tax brackets are illegal because they're discriminatory. One person gets taxed at 46.5% and another person only gets taxed at 15%. Okay? It's discriminatory between parts of states, the people. It's unlawful. Section 55. Laws imposing taxation, okay, except laws imposing duties of customs of excise, shall deal with one subject of taxation only. One subject only. So what about GST? Goods and services tax is quite obviously two subjects, not one. So GST is unconstitutional. Most people haven't got a clue and pay it all day, every day. Alright, that's section 58. When a proposed law, so it's not a law, it's a proposed law, is passed by both houses of Parliament, not just one, and is then presented to the Governor-General for the Queen's assent, not for anyone else's assent, for the Queen's assent, he shall declare, according to his discretion, but subject to this Constitution, not just because he or she thinks it sounds good, that he assents in the Queen's name, or that he withholds assent, or that he reserves the law for the Queen's pleasure. It doesn't say they can assent to laws of their own will. They can only assent in the Queen's name, or withhold assent, or reserve the law for the Queen's pleasure. It also means that the Parliament of Queensland also can't just assent to laws and create laws. It doesn't work that way. Now in Queensland you've got an even bigger problem because Queensland abolished our upper house in 1922. So how can any law since 1922 have been passed by both houses of the Parliament as is specifically required under the Commonwealth Constitution in section 58? Okay, it just can't happen. Alright, Chapter 3 Court, which I mentioned just before. Okay, Section 71, Judicial Power and Courts. The judicial power of the Commonwealth shall be vested in a Federal Supreme Court to be called the High Court of Australia, and in such other federal courts as the Parliament creates, and in such other courts as is invested with federal jurisdiction. The High Court shall consist of a Chief Justice and so many other justices, not less than 2, as the Parliament prescribes. So for any court to be a valid Chapter 3 court pursuant to Section 71, it must have not less than 2 judges, justices, magistrates. That is clearly spelled out. Okay, and again, most people haven't got a clue. Section 81, all revenues or monies raised or received by the executive government of the Commonwealth shall form one consolidated revenue fund to be appropriated for the purposes of the Commonwealth in the manner and subject to liabilities imposed by its Constitution. That's how the government raises money for public projects, not through your personal taxes, which we'll cover in a second. Section 92, on the imposition of uniform duties of customs, trade, commerce and intercourse among the states, whether by means of internal carriage or ocean navigation, shall be absolutely free. I'll say it again, intercourse among the states shall be absolutely free. So anyone who's in Victoria dealing with this 5 kilometre restriction or 25 kilometre restriction, anyone who's been fined for travelling among the states, anyone who's received a toll invoice or fine for travelling among the states, okay, it knocks all of it out. Intercourse among the states shall be absolutely free. Section 109, when a law of a state is inconsistent with the law of the Commonwealth, the latter shall prevail, and the former shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be invalid. So, again, as an example, a state law that says a speed detection device only has to be tested and sealed in the prescribed manner, but the National Measurement Act says that a device must be tested and certified as being accurate, then the latter, being a national act, okay, being federal, obviously prevails and overrides the state act because there's clearly an inconsistency. Right, the Quick and Garrett Annotated Constitution. Okay, the 1,008-page Quick and Garrett Annotated Constitution is considered by the courts, as I said, as the authority on the Commonwealth Constitution. And I will show you this here. So we have got these available on our website. They are fully indexed, they're fully searchable, so you can search for Queen, you can search for Fine, you can search for any specific topic, and you can see all the references throughout the whole Commonwealth Constitution anytime they pop up. It is an absolutely essential resource tool. So if anyone is yet to grab a copy of that, I urge you, please jump onto the Magistrate's website, go onto the products page, and you'll find a copy of that there. So yeah, that's it there. Alright, the ATO and personal tax. Personal tax was originally brought in to supplement funding the war, but it was supposed to be abolished when the war ended. Of course, the government got so hooked on the income, they've just kept it ever since. As I said before, infrastructure is not paid for by our personal taxes. It's paid for by raising a bill of exchange pursuant to Section 81. Okay, the truth about the ATO. The ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, was originally called the Federal Taxation Office, which only focused on collecting land tax. Okay, it then changed to the Commonwealth Taxation Service and ultimately transformed magically into the purported Australian Taxation Office. But despite there being no authority for that change, and the change was not gazetted. So that change is unlawful. Okay, so the Australian Taxation Office is not a legal entity. Most people haven't got a clue about this. But it was confirmed in the Mollica v. Chapman case. Again, go to our website, knowyourrightsgroup.com.au/tax, scroll down, you can click and download the Mollica v. Chapman case and there is a number of times there where they ask, is the ATO a legal entity? No, it is not. And they spell it out in the court case. All right? Now, another key point, despite the thousands of pages that make up the Income Tax Assessment Act, okay, the ATO cannot actually define income. Now, does that not seem a bit strange to people? That they ask you to file an income tax return statement every year, but the ATO can't even define income. So, what is income? Income is related to an increase. But where is the increase if you're simply swapping your time, effort, energy, wisdom, knowledge, experience for worthless fiat currency that's no longer gold backed? Okay, you're swapping your time, effort, energy, wisdom, knowledge, experience for debt instruments. So how can there be an increase? All right, another key point. The ATO defines a taxpayer as a person deriving income or deriving profits or gains of a capital nature. Now, if you still think you're a person as opposed to a man or woman, then you need to grab our Know Your Rights book so that you understand the distinction. Okay, you are absolutely not a person. You have a person, you can administrate a person, but you are not a person. But again, deriving income, which they can't define, or deriving profits or gains of a capital nature, well, again, you swapping your time, effort, energy, wisdom, knowledge for worthless debt instruments is not a profit or gain of a capital nature. So by their own definition, you cannot be a taxpayer. Now, why is that important? Okay? Because the ATO tells you that the Australia's income tax system is based on self-assessment, and it only applies to taxpayers. Now, do the tax laws apply to you? This is the Long versus Rasmussen case. The revenue laws are a code or a system in regulation of tax assessment and collection. They relate to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. The latter are without their scope. No procedures are prescribed for non-taxpayers, and no attempt is made to annul any of their rights and remedies in due course of law. With them, Congress does not assume to deal, and they are neither the subject nor the object of the revenue laws. They don't apply to non-taxpayers. Okay? Hale versus Henkel. Again, the individual may stand upon his or her constitutional rights as a citizen. He's entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no such duty to submit his books and papers for an examination. No duty to file an income tax return statement. No duty to the state, since he receives nothing from them beyond the protection of his life and property. His rights are as existed by the law of the land, Humber law, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, long antecedent to long before the organisation of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. Among his rights are a refusal to incriminate himself, and the immunity of himself and his property from arrest or seizure except under a warrant of the law. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. It is such a powerful case. I urge you all, look it up. We've got a copy of it in our e-book. It's on our website. But this is such an important point. Again, obviously in relation to the ATO, but in relation to anything else in life as well. Don't volunteer information. Most people will get themselves in trouble with authorities because they open their mouth when they don't need to. The police go, oh, why were you speeding? Oh, because I was on the right. Well, you've just admitted to it. You know, oh, why did you do this? Oh, but look, as soon as you answer, you're volunteering information that you just don't need to. There's no formal requirement for you to file a tax return, and they can't define income anyway. So why would you give them information that you're not meant to? Okay, no one can force you to give them information or do something without compensating for you. Okay, that's called slavery. Alright? Slavery was abolished years ago. Alright? If you choose to work for an employer rather than for yourself, though, be aware that that's a choice. And yes, they will still take tax out of your PAYG payslip each and every week, fortnight, whatever. Okay, but that's a choice, and we all make choices in life, but you can make new choices moving forward. Now, if you have volunteered information to the ATO and they are now asking you for money, you can request forgiveness of a tax liability pursuant to Division 340 under the Commissioner's power in cases of hardship, and that comes straight out of the Taxation Administration Act 1953. Again, an ex-partner of mine had a $20,000 ATO debt. We wrote under these provisions and had the whole thing wiped. So there are very, very powerful provisions that are in there once you get your head around it. Private foundations, some of you might have heard of these. These are a vehicle or an entity that allow you to operate in the private realm and be fully compensated for your time, effort and energy without government intervention. So without the ATO putting out their grubby little hands and taking a portion of your hard-earned money. Okay, we have a whole financial freedom chapter in our Eagle, which covers private foundations, trusts and self-managed super funds and how to use them. So if that sounds like something that might be of interest to you, please make sure you grab a copy of the Know Your Rights book. And again, I'll show you that in a moment, and Anthony has some after that. You can also go to www.operateintheprivate.com and they have information on private foundations and how to operate in the private realm. Alright, and the final bit I want to cover quickly is the banking fraud. Banks actually commit fraud every single time they engage in a home loan. The fraud based around your certificate of title to your property, which is actually classified as currency, pursuant to Section 39 of the Banking Act 1939. What they do when you settle a property is they steal or swindle your certificate of title. They then deposit that into an account and then they loan you funds back against what they just stole from you and created a credit flow. If you want to know the ins and outs, have a look at the Credit River decision for more information. And you'll find more on that there. You can also challenge unsecured loans. All personal loans and credit cards can be challenged and discharged very, very easily. If it's secured property or a car loan, that's more difficult, but anything unsecured personal and credit cards can be very simply challenged and discharged. Bank Secret Reveal has a tried, tested and proven 4-step process to challenge those loans. And again, I will show you very quickly. I just got that. That is the Bank Secret Revealed book. Again, Anthony will have some copies of that up the back of the room. And that is the document CD that comes with that. Again, all the letters are pre-written. All you need to do is just cut and paste the details in, and that will you can write to the bank. Ask them questions about the bank fraud. You can challenge, force that process, challenge any unsecured debt, credit cards, things like that. So make sure you check that out. Yep, 1 minute. I'm just finishing up the last little bit, I promise. Okay. Right, and there's finally we cover through. Yes?
Can you just clarify that when you actually make a deposit in a bank, it's actually officially an unsecured loan to the bank?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah. So, yeah, so when you go and you take your, don't have anything on me, but you take your note into the bank, they actually borrow it off you.
1 second. How many of you guys know that when you make a deposit, it's an unsecured loan? Yeah. And does anyone know about the bailing laws that have been passed in Parliament?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The writing's on the wall there. Why would they do that? So what else did you want to wrap it up in 30 seconds?
Yeah, I've just got 2 more slides if I can.
Okay.
I'll super quick. So just to let people know, these are some of the other topics that we cover as part of the Know Your Rights group. How to challenge local councils and stop them from acting as de facto third tiers of government. How we've all been subjected to private law as part of the Unitary Treaty since 1973. The straw man concept, how to administrate that person rather than being a person and getting sucked into being that person yourself. And we also deal with all the current and any future no jab, no pay and other similar mandatory vaccination laws, which again I know is something that is concerning for a lot of people. We have an entire chapter on that in our book. We do have the book, which again I'll hold up in a section in a second. We've got the numerous CDs, we've got seminar DVDs, and again I'll just show you those super quickly here. Again, that's the Know Your Rights book, the essential step-by-step manual for understanding and exercising your rights. So Anthony's got copies of those. It does come with a references CD, which has videos, it has letters, it has my will letters that you can write, it has letters that you can write to local councils, a whole lot of information on those. And obviously what I've done here today is I've just ripped through what we usually go through in 2.5 days in like 1 hour. So if you do want to find out more, we do have our live seminar DVDs, four DVDs, and hopefully you can read. They're all the different topics that we cover on those DVDs. We also provide personalised one-on-one coaching sessions for anyone who wants to get in a little bit more in depth. We run a radio show, as I said, every Tuesday night. We do live video updates every Thursday night now. So we've got Facebook groups. There's plenty of ways to get hold of us, but just knowyourrightsgroup.com.au. That's our website. You'll find tons of free info there. If anyone wants any books, see Anthony. And hopefully some of that information is a benefit to everybody out there who's interested.
All right, well, let's leave that there, Mike.
Yep.
Tomorrow, we'll pick this up again tomorrow. We'll be doing some Q&A. So if you guys have got any questions for Mike, we'll be coming back on tomorrow. We'll set up a place.